There we go. Welcome everybody to Monica Mark's Inside Voices Artist Talk. For those of you who don't know, we're doing this on Zoom. It was originally scheduled in person during the closing reception of her show here at my physical space. I live and work at the brewery near downtown Los Angeles, and Monica had a solo show. So it was supposed to be last weekend, and Monica had COVID. So, hopefully everybody knows.
Oh,
Yeah. So thankfully she's looking and feeling so much better. Yay. Now everybody else has it. I mean, not because of you, but you're just going, sorry. But
not on me.
yeah, no, I don't mean that.
That was
But
very
again, everybody's able to join on Zoom. So it's
yes,
perfect. So,
yes.
and we can record it and yeah. So, again, thank you for being here. And I love doing these on Zoom anyway because it's recorded. I'm going to put the recording. There is an online component to our exhibition. So, in fact, I will share a link in the chat. And so if you also want to open it up, I'm going to share my screen so you can go ahead and follow along as Monica and I kind of talk about her work and talk about her history of being an artist and why she does what she does. And yeah, you'll be able to see a photo of the actual exhibition that was at Shoebox Projects. And yeah, so with that, before I share the screen, Monica, do you want to kind of, give an overview of who you are, what you do, why you do what you do, when you knew you were an artist and all that fun stuff?
Oh my goodness, I should have written all this down. I would be happy to talk about myself. I've always known I was an artist. I will say that. My parents like to talk about, I. It's like Lisa just said, I knew her when we were in art school together at CSUN. So that was kind of the culmination of got my art degree. But yeah, you just put me in the corner with a whole bunch of Play-Doh or regular clay or markers or crayons or whatever it was. That was my happy place. And I used to get in trouble in math class because I would make little cartoon figures out of all the numbers. And I started out just doing that with a few. And then eventually the math teacher was, you need to redo this. I can't tell what any of the numbers are anymore. So that's how I deal with numbers. And I knew I was going to, I also am a writer. I like writing. I like writing different kinds of prose and poetry. And so something creative. I knew I was going to be doing something creative that was going to be in the arts. I went to Cal State Northridge to get my art degree. And then shortly before, I think it was during my junior year, I took a class in art therapy. And it kind of brought together the creative aspect and the healing aspect that I have always loved, but didn't know they could come together in that way. So that changed my direction for a little bit and kind of broadened it for me. I stayed an extra year to get the prerequisites to go to Loyola Marymount for their graduate program in clinical art therapy, which had just been changed to marital and family therapy with the clinical art therapy emphasis. So I was able to it was a dual track program to get my degree in both marital and family therapy and in art therapy, which then I became certified and licensed in each one. I worked in both. When I decided I was going to do art as a career, I figured, well, at that time in the 80s, I had to be a graphic artist. So I did graphic arts while I was also getting my hours for my degrees and staying very much in the mental health field. It was hard to do my own creative process at the time, but I still was making it work. And then life got in the way, and I worked more in the mental health field than the art field. And I stopped doing my own art for a while. During the pandemic, Kristine through Shoebox had this call and response where you could be paired up with an artist and have a communication with art going back and forth only. About a year before, my husband Todd had made sure that I had an art studio in the backyard. So I had a space. I was doing remote work from that space. That was my art space. And I was like, well, while I'm in here, might as well do some art. And then I was like, well, how do I branch that into the art community? How do I really make this finally work? And that's where Shoebox came in. And I've been kind of growing in that so far. And the past handful of years, I've been able to really dedicate my life to my art career, which has now come full circle. And I feel like I'm doing what I was always meant to do. And then with my personal work, it's gone through quite a progression of starting with collage, which I still love, but not relying only on the collage. And then I was doing collage with found objects and mixed media work. And everything I did was 12 by 12, 12 inches by 12 inches. It's my little square pieces of everything, shadow boxes, frames. And I felt very safe in my 12 by 12s. And if any of you know Kristine, she'll push you beyond that safe little comfort square. And I'm really glad she did. And this show was definitely something that was it was a push, but it was like a blossom more than a push, I would say. And I worked bigger than I ever had before and dealt with topics in different ways because my art has always been therapeutic, but I found other ways to do it, in which I know we're going to talk about as well in the process of creating these. And then just being able to have them all in one room was pure joy. And then I can share them with the world now.
Yay! It's so interesting. I didn't even, well, I don't know. I'm sure I heard you say, that you studied like graphic design, graphic arts in the past. And, but I forgot. And of course, like even like your text, your stenciling. I mean, even the layouts of your art. I'm like, oh, definitely, of course.
Yeah.
I see it. Yep,
Yeah.
absolutely.
That composition and that text never leaves you.
Yeah, yeah. It's funny how, yeah, we bring like all different parts of our lives into our art in that way. And what's really interesting is as you're talking, I'm like, oh, maybe I need to challenge her to go back to 12 by 12. But we'll talk about that another time.
Oi.
I know. Well, let me go ahead and share my screen and we can look at the exhibition here. So I wanted to show before like we go into each individual piece. Some of you were here for the opening reception, and this is my small but mighty space shoebox projects. And kind of, like what Monica was saying when we started, or as we've worked together over the years, I've definitely challenged her. And so I use this space to challenge my artists. And that's actually like pretty new where if an artist signs up for me, I give them a solo show in the space and I work with them closely to put a cohesive, strong, powerful show together. And so Monica is actually the first artist who I did this with. And, I loved, and we'll talk about them in a second, but on the right-hand side, there's two smaller pieces that you can't necessarily see as much here. But I loved those pieces that she was doing. And so I told her I wanted to curate an exhibition featuring work like that. I wanted her to go bigger and do more work like that. And so for a few months, that's all she did was work on that. And I told her, don't share the full thing on social media, which was hard for me, because I'm all about sharing on social media. So she would share details and it was really good. And so when people came to the show, they saw these for the first time and and it was really great. I mean, hanging the show was, wonderful. Seeing it all up together was wonderful. So, do you want to talk about that experience before we get into each one, Monica?
Sure. Was interesting for me personally. It was the first time I saw all the pieces in one place was at home when I was taking my new headshot that Amanda Marks took. And I I'd seen like a couple pieces together, and I worked on these, and then these were stacked behind this place, and then we had them all out, and it was like meeting a whole new family that I've only known the individual members of previously, and it like a homecoming of this work that I've been doing for months in one room, and it I don't know how to describe it really more than that, but or maybe these were like, individually, I had gotten to know each of these intimately, and I knew what each one was about. And then to have them all in one place is a very overwhelming, wonderful experience. So then to bring them here, and thank you, Julie, for the use of your car, as always. Credit where credit's due. And Todd hung everything, with hammers and stuff, tools that I'm not good at yet. Um, and Kristine was like, I think this should go here. I think these would go there. And I'm just watching this process happens. And maybe it's like when somebody writes a play and then hands off the play and the characters to the director and the producer and the choreographer, and they're figuring out what it will look like in the space. So I had to let go of it a little bit. And if there was something I felt strongly about, I was fine saying it. But it's a really interesting experience to go through it like this. And then the room was filled with my work. And there's just nothing like that. There's nothing, I mean, it's just amazing. And I trusted each person that helped with each aspect of it. So that allowed me to kind of let go a little bit and say, you know what you're doing. I did my part. You did your part.
It was definitely a team effort. Even the wall on the right-hand side, I had laid out like the longer one was in the middle. And I think maybe it was Todd or somebody had said, what about if we switch them? And I'm like, oh yeah, So it's like, yeah, it was a team effort all around. And yes, I mean, thank you, Todd, for hanging, and Julie for your car. And yeah, I mean, that's what we do, is we support each other in that way, which makes us so much better. I
Yes.
also feel like, anytime you can, whether you stage a show, for like a 1 day thing, or, if you can do this, if you're an artist and you have a chance to have a space and put your work up in one space to see it at one time, it may change the way you work. It may change how you display your work, how you do your work. I think it's a really good idea if you can do that some way. I mean, I always recommend to my artists stage a show and document it and photograph it and videotape it and shop it around. So that's the other reason we did this, was we have installation shots. Monica shot a video with LA Art Documents that she could put on her website. She can that shows all of the work up close, and she can send that out to other institutions now, and create more work so she can have a bigger show.
That'd be awesome.
Yep, yep. So let's go ahead and dive into each piece.
Yes.
You can go to the website, read the statement. Um, but yeah, so I mean, we'll dive in with the biggest piece. It's all love. So tell us where that came from. Tell us about this piece.
This one, the piece that sold, which I'm thrilled about, sold opening night, opening day, whatever the opening was. And it's funny because I don't know if it's because it was the last piece I created in in the exhibition, was probably my favorite at the time because it was my youngest child. And it started, each of these pieces start very different. I had sketches of what the underlayers were, and then what I was saying at the opening was that if you took an x-ray of each piece, you'd see 8 totally different paintings, with some things peeking through. Each piece was a process of covering and revealing, of hiding and opening and closing and going back and forth like that. And this piece was actually originally, I mean, I guess it still is, about grief and loss, and people that I've lost in past years, and that the infinity symbol was always there from the very beginning, but it went through a lot of different iterations. It was very prominent, then it was very subtle. I always knew it was going to have kind of the cool and warm contrast to it as well. And it wasn't until about, I think, 2/3 of the way down, I have a page in my sketchbook where I write down terms and words, and that's actually where we came up with the name for the show, Inside Voices, because that was on there. And and I had terms and words about this, and this one is about, you know, that love endures and lasts both in the physical body and beyond. That it is all love, and that doesn't end. And that's where this came from. And so it's very powerful. It's very, I think it's very beautiful. It's kind of a little bit of ethereal to it. And it took many layers until it became what I wanted it to be. And sometimes it's really hard to know when I'm done. But with a lot of these, it wasn't. And this one, I was like, it's like I had it without the shadow on the letters, and I was like, not done, not done. And, you know, like, and I finished that to go with the shadow on the infinity symbol, and I was like, okay, it's done. So, you know, it doesn't, if you didn't know, you wouldn't necessarily know looking at it that this is about grief and loss. But it's not just about grief and loss. The lower layers were very, very dark, and it started there. And then it lightened as it went on. And I came to the realization of, you know, what it really is. It's all love.
I love that. And, you know, remember what you just said about the piece you're working on now. It started out dark and then got lighter and lighter and lighter. So,
Yes. Yes.
yep,
Little
yep.
thing I'm through at the moment. Yes.
You know, and that with a lot of your work, you know, it's so multivalent. There's so many, you know, layers of, you know, where there is darkness, but then, you know, but I mean, I feel like always the top layer is, you know, profound and powerful and empowering and inspiring. So no matter what, you know, whether the inside voices are good or bad, you know, and whatever you have to go through to get to the top layer, you know, you come out strong and, you know, in all aspects, and you come out with love and, you know, which is a beautiful thing.
Thank you. I try. But I will say, I mean, I know I wrote about this too, is that you know, I couldn't have done this show 10 years ago for all sorts of reasons. I think that the negative self-talk was very, very heavy and loud back then. And that's why some of these are darker underneath. Not this one is a little different themed in particular, but a lot of them have to do with maybe negative voices that we've internalized, and the things we tell ourselves, and the things we say we can't do. And I was very cruel to myself with the things that I heard in my own head. And I'm not going to say, oh, I'm completely fixed, and that never happens, because obviously, you know, it does. But I've worked really hard in therapy, proponent of therapy on all sides, um, to look at where those voices really came from, and do they really have a right to have as much of a say anymore, and to replace some of them with the messages that you see now on the top layers of these.
Well, you know, I think you know, you're just carrying on your tradition of art therapy too. I mean, you know, as being a proponent of therapy in general, but also
Yeah.
using art as therapy, of course. So,
Yeah, and there's a whole thing about art therapy and art as therapy, and you know, it's I just embrace it all.
and you know, I think most artists, you know, I mean, I can't speak for all artists, but a lot of artists I know use art I mean, as a way, I mean, it, of course, as a way to express themselves, which can be a form of therapy too. So, absolutely. I want to keep track of the chat. Oh, cool.
I know, I
Okay.
was just looking
Make
at it
sure,
too. Yeah.
yeah, no questions or anything yet. So yeah, tell us about, this is, another new piece that wasn't shown, that hasn't been shown anywhere before this show. So tell us
Yeah.
about this piece.
This one, the same kind of thing. If you look at the early sketches, I definitely, there was always going to be something in the middle and chaos swirling around it. And I've had a lot of people ask me about my continued use of the checkerboard pattern, other than I like the checkerboard pattern. But it also, to me, it's very structured, it's organized, it is the opposite of chaos, really, that checkerboard, very straight, lines. And it's there in the background, but on top of that, you have this energy swirling around that could get very, very overwhelming. And it's kind of standing in the midst of the storm and being able to withstand it all because, again, the words that I used, powerful and strong. Excuse me, there's still some cough. and then there's hidden messages in this one as well. There's the word sing, and there's little dancing people, and it's one that I never wanted to create something that you could look at and walk away. I always wanted to create something that you have to stay and stare at it, or walk away and come back and go, oh, I didn't notice that the first time. Because that's what I like. I like things that I have to stare at for a while, and what is this making me feel? And what do I see? And then go back and say, what did I not see before that maybe I'm seeing now? So it's following the chat too. So this one, very specifically, the the pointed circle swishes, I don't know what we would call them, always had those lines in them too. And I'm not sure exactly why, but that's a pattern I really like to draw. And it's kind of like taking control of the chaos a little bit, managing the chaos, I suppose. It's going to swirl, but it doesn't have to swirl out of control completely. So this has a lot of aspects to it. Also, I always liked there's a lot of meaning behind, in different cultures, behind the term I am. And so I definitely wanted that to be, there's be still and know that I am. It's a kind of a spiritual or God reference. It can be, used in a lot of different cultures. And then we talked about music at something else recently, that I will often play music that resonates with how I'm feeling at the time, so that it helps influence me to do the artwork while I'm working. And I really wanted to hear the song I Am, I Said by, someone help me, I'm having a COVID blank. The
Neil
guy who's,
Diamond.
thank you. I'm like, save me. Yes, and so I blasted that song, and I everyone's now writing in the chat, Neil Diamond. You guys have to come with me if I'm on a quiz show one day. I And it was, the feeling of that song was kind of feeding how I was already feeling, and it was a very wonderful creative, and that was just for like one of the layers. Obviously, I didn't listen to the song for a month on end, but it was how I was feeling, that in the midst of chaos we have a strength within us, and perhaps it is a spiritual strength, or whatever you want to call it, that connects us to the rest of the universe, or the other people that are here or have been here or will be here, that helps us say, I can do this, I can do this.
During the or was it the opening or the close? No, it was the closing, because you weren't here and we were texting you. um, Donna and I were like looking at a couple of your pieces, and she was pointing out all of these things that I'm like, it's right there. And how come I didn't see it? Like where it says I said, at the
Mhm.
bottom here, it's
Yeah,
like
yeah.
I've been looking at this work, I looked at this work for 2 or 3 weeks, and there were things that I'm like, wait a second. And it was wonderful listening to her commentary on it. And then, texting you, I love that she was texting you during the whole thing to
Yes, yes, she was. She's gonna watch the recording of this. She couldn't come
yeah,
to
I
it.
think she's here. I think
Oh,
I thought she was here.
I try to. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. But yeah, and did I and something just so everybody knows, like we were all pointing out, the checkerboard piece, the only piece that doesn't have the checkerboard is the It's All Love, which was,
Yeah,
although you could say it has a larger checkerboard.
you got it.
Yeah. Yep.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does.
Yep. And since we're back here, I know you touched on it a little bit, but Daryl had asked about the infinity symbol. Is there a deeper reason for that?
Yeah, that really that it has to do with the continual life spirit that
Beautiful.
I feel is love. That doesn't that it's there before we're born, it's there after we die. And that, and again, since it was about grief and loss, that was really what that was about for me.
Yeah,
So that was a very important part of it.
absolutely. Let's see. So let's go ahead to this piece here.
Okay. So the thing about this piece is you can't necessarily tell from the picture that it's a low relief piece. And it's on wood, and then there's a built up clay to the figure. So this piece plays in two different series, because it's the Inside Voices series, but it's also part of my Bodies Like Mine series that I'm currently working on and off in my spare time. Um, and part of it has to do with the fact that unless I was looking at like a Rubens, ancient artwork, um, art and social media and just magazines growing up, I didn't always see my body represented. And so my people with bodies like mine, at least I did, felt very othered and unaccepted. And I was teased pretty horribly when I was little for my body. And those scars are part of what led to the dark inside voices. So this is, I don't know if it's like a reclaiming my body or cherishing my body. It helped me to love my body more by creating it. And I felt that when I've done three-dimensional sculpture of bodies like mine, and when I did this of bodies like mine. And I knew I wanted it to be bold and loud and colorful and powerful, and all the things that I didn't feel growing up in this body that I'm working on all the time to feel more of, to feel more real. Like it's just, I have an aging, heavier than some body. It's just, but it, oh, and what Donna saw too is because I don't call it a self portrait, but the squiggly blue on the top is the hint that it is.
I
And she,
totally missed that. I did not even notice that. And you even put it plain as day, look, she even saw that. It's like, I totally missed that. I'm like, what kind of curator am I?
well, but that means I'm doing my job. See, I
Yep.
don't want something sitting in, someone's house or something where, oh yeah, I've seen that. It's like every time you look at it, it's like, oh, that could be that. And I wonder what's written in that square, and just make it a little different. So this is now on my postcards, as you know. My evergreen postcard, to use a term. Um, And oh, thank you, Dallas. Yeah, I mean, I'm proud of all the pieces. They're like children. They really are. I love them all for all these different reasons. But this was an early piece I did. Um, I just did this. I think I did this one on my own before when we decided that we were going to build upon it. I just knew I really wanted to do it. And yeah, this is my first, like, I really had to, with this, and the three-dimensional sculpture was interesting, is you can't hide from yourself if you're using yourself as a basis for the art you're doing.
Yep.
You can only really look at yourself more. And if you're creating something that is beautiful based on you, then obviously you can put that together. So that helped me a lot. Yeah, I like this one too.
Beautifully said. So there's actually a question touching a little more on the color. Can you speak more to the role of color in your work and your artistic process? I love how you use bold, bright colors, and I'm curious if you start with a defined color palette for each work, or start with one or two key colors and variegate them more as you work through the piece.
Oh, good questions. Oh, I love that. Okay, so my color palettes have changed as I've gone through the process of creation over the years. All my works in 2019 were rust colored mostly, and and I was using a lot of rust and found objects too, but I just found they were very earthy, and I still love them, but I was wondering if I was also avoiding color, because to me, bold color and some of these are fluorescent color, they are loud. They are very loud. And I was generally not a loud person, as you know. Except when I get on these talks, I just can't shut up. But I grew up trying to hide in the background, and I grew up trying to be an underlayer. Whoa, that's a good quote. I like that. And it's
It is.
someone write that down. Um, my autobiography. And so that the more confident I got, the more I decided I wanted to take risks, the more that changed. And the more I decided I want to be seen. And I want my artwork to be seen as an extension of myself. And so I started introducing color more and more. My first attempts were fairly monochromatic. Um, Pieces that were like almost all magenta, almost all orange. There's a piece I'm probably going to submit somewhere that I did a while ago that was at the Brown Library. It's almost entirely orange. And I love it for that, but that's not really what I'm doing anymore. I started to become a little more bold. A lot of these pieces start with spray paint in the background, especially the ones that are done on wood, because I like scratching back into things. And the spray paint is an underlayer that you can scratch back to. And it's almost like, remember those scratchy boards, and they would give you, it was like all black and there was color underneath, and you would take a little scratchy piece of wood and draw on it. And so because this whole show is about revealing and uncovering and deciding what to show and what not to show, I would just, with this one, I was like, let it all hang out. And this is, I wanted it to be as bold and bright as possible. And so I am doing that more, or learning to do it more. It's a little, it's definitely a process. So let's see, on average, do I work on a piece? You know what? That's a very good question. Because this one, because first it was all clay onto the wood. Well, first I had like a medium on it, like a sticky. I was building up with an acrylic medium that would stick to the wood and give it some tooth to build onto. And then I went with air dry clay, and it was a very hot spell. And so it was drying very fast, which was fun. I've done air dry clay in a lot of different temperatures and humidities, and it's always a different challenge. Um, so this one took a long time because I had to wait for each layer of clay to dry before I went back in. Um, I would say, I mean, with these, I don't know, would you say like 3 weeks each, maybe a
But you
month
also
each?
worked on several at the same time too. So
Yeah, like the two smaller ones. Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
that is true.
something
But
like
this,
that.
but this one, I just want to say, because it has the relief element to it, which I really enjoyed because I love to work in clay and I love to work on two-dimensional substrates. So to be able to combine those was like, I want to do more of that. That's really fun. Um, but yeah, the color thing definitely has evolved and is still evolving because now I'm learning to how do I cover up some of that to not be all or nothing, to not be just dark, just earth tone, just monotone, or just colorful, but to find how to weave a way in between all those. That's what I'm now learning and working on.
So the funny thing is, as we're talking, I'm like, okay, next I'm gonna challenge Monica to go monochrome and like one color only.
I'll try anything.
Yeah.
You know
You
that.
know, a question that I have or that I was thinking about, there was a picture that came up recently from it was like one of the first pictures we took together when we first met. It was, I think, early in the pandemic when you stopped by for something, and I think your hair was like black or dark. And
Yeah,
I realized as I've gotten to know you, it has gotten a lot more colorful. Did you
yes.
used to color it before the pandemic?
I started to do my own like at home treatment, which wouldn't show up as much, just to kind of dabble in it. I think I remember one time when I was at CSUN, and I don't know what I was wearing, but it wasn't your average student clothes. And I sat down in just a regular gen ed class, and the person next to me looked at me really strange, and I leaned over and I said, "It's okay. I'm an art student." So I think once I started to accept, because I even had a hard time, if you remember this, calling myself an artist.
Yes.
And once I could say, I'm an artist, I was like, and I can have blue hair. And I even have that. I know you have that sticker that says, life is too short to not have blue hair.
Yes.
Um, it's all about becoming who I really am. And right now in my life, I feel more comfortable with blue hair. And I hear it from a lot of other neurodivergent people that they feel more comfortable when their hair is a different color than the average, I'll say. Um, and so it's very interesting when I'm in a room where I'm the only one with blue hair, or when I'm surrounded by people, which are usually artists or other neurodivergents or neurodivergent artists, with all different colors, pink and whatever, cool mohawks. It's a part of letting myself be comfortable in who I am, no matter who anybody else is. So I think
I
that's
love
what it is.
and that's what's happening with your art too. So it's like life imitates art, art imitates life. Yep. Exactly. All right. So tell us about Spring Back.
Okay, so this was an earlier piece. And this, I don't remember offhand the year, but it was spring when I did it. And I remember that it was probably two years ago, I think. I want to say 2 years ago, but time is weird. It's wibbly wobbly, timey wimey. And it was spring, but there was a lot of things that they were saying, oh, spring forward, change your clocks, spring forward. And I was like, I don't feel like we are springing forward right now in the world, and especially in our country. To give you, if you know me, you know what that time period was, and hopefully won't be again. So I did this kind of a contradictory piece that instead called it Spring Back, and did some kind of, typical spring looks. There's the umbrella and there's the tulip and there's the ad for the tulips, but all the ads that are used in the images in the collage are like from the 50s ish, when people were saying, make America great again. Wouldn't it be great if we all went back to this time? Like, no. So you don't know until you're really looking at it, or you hear me talk about it. It's not. It's meant to look colorful, but that's not all there is to it. And I put a big peace sign right in the middle because I'm like, I won't say it on the recording. But it's also the drippiness of it, which is a little bit of like the rain, spring rain, but also just things sort of falling apart, disintegrating. What is happening to people, to our country, to the love that was eroding, or at least coming out to be seen for the ugliness that I didn't know was there. And it was very sad for me to have this, kind of, I wouldn't say I was Pollyanna necessarily, but I think I had a little more faith in humanity before a certain era that we went through that we're trying to avoid again, without getting too political. Um, so yeah, so that's why there's false order in this one, I believe.
I love how you can see the transition, because I know this is an older one, and I think the last piece that we'll look at is, a little older too. I mean, it's the earlier ones in the series, that you still are using some assemblage elements also. And
Yeah.
so, you're kind of, it's a transitional phase, I feel like that you're going through in that respect, because you were using found objects as assemblage, and then like to the real women have power, you're actually creating the object or your body in the piece. So there's that transition too.
Yeah, that's very interesting. And using my own body is really peeling off the layers too. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a whole different thing. Yeah.
Yep.
Same kind of defiance, just in kind of different stages.
Yeah.
And then this one, I love this one too. This one, you're talking about 8 different paintings on these layers. I probably 20 on this one. So this started with angel wings, and everyone's probably going, what? So so there was always a center to this one. I do tend to love having a center spirit of something, a center, a grounding center, that is the core of something. I don't always know at the beginning what that core is. But this had angel wings around it. It's like I want to point at the screen, which is not going to help anybody. Um, right there. um, it started out about, and I think it continued about growth and change and evolving. And so that's why there's a couple butterflies as well. So the wings, I love using wings as a symbol in a lot of different, pieces, um, both sculptural and more two-dimensional like this. And the wings are very prominent at first, and then they weren't at all. And then I brought them back a little bit more. And then I got, painted over them again. And then, so this one, what's interesting too is the very center of the circle has the same square divisions as the It's All Love. So and so that carrying through the checkerboard again of looking for order in things, or trying to make order out of chaos, is also in the center of this piece. So those there's a connection there. And this one went through, I'd have to look back at my pictures. I couldn't even tell you everything that's under this one. And there's again the spray painted, the stencils, which you could see a little bit of, and some are completely covered and you don't see, and some came back. There's a little bit of gold leaf. I like to throw in metallic things sometimes, just because, I don't know, I think just a part of it should shine a little bit more than the rest of it. And the letters, just even saying "speak your truth," changed. You know, they were black on a color, and then they were a color on black, and then they went back again, and then I did that. You know, it just kept changing all the time. This one took a long time to know when it was done. And I think it's close, and it's not. So yeah, there's a lot of different parts, and this is similar, where I went back and I scratched on it as well. I really enjoy scratching layers off, and there's something about it that it's like, because I'm using a metal tool, I feel like an archaeologist. Like I am digging at it. I have to be careful because I've done that on canvas and I've gone right through. So that is why I like working on a wood substrate now, because I learned my lesson. And I just like, what is under, because I don't remember anymore what's under there. And I want to take a peek and I want to show everyone else. And then sometimes I'll just cover it up again. So you never know. But yeah, so this is about finding your voice and evolving, and you know what your truth is. So say it out loud. Let other people hear it. I think that's, if I could sum it all up.
I love it. I love it. All right, let's look at the last piece here.
This one actually won an award at the Moa Cedar annual juried show a couple years ago, a few years ago. Again, time, I don't know. And this was, I think I did this one first before Spring Back. I think this, yeah. So this might be the oldest piece. And I knew I wanted the words know and body and love, but I kept changing the order because it was like, if you love your body, or you don't love your body, or you don't love your body, do you have love? Can you have love without loving your body? And like I just kept going, you know, back and forth, and I wasn't sure. And I don't think there's a right, it's kind of open to interpretation. I just end up calling it no body love because that's the order on here. But it could also be love no body. I had it like that for a while too in my head. So this has in the just right of center, there's a metal circular. I just like circles. I like I like checkerboards and circles. And within that is a little clay figure. I used to constantly be making air dry women's torsos out of clay. I would just make them, and then I would use them in all different things. So I've been making women's torsos for a very long time, just different. I just never made them big before or three-dimensional. So it's in that little mesh round cup thing. I think it came off a strainer. It's a rusty strainer. And there's a key that's locked in there with her. So take that as you want. And then there's this, again, this chaos that is both a little scary, a little out of control, but also very beautiful. And it's how we trap our own bodies and what we think of our bodies instead of just accepting them. And that I have a lot of internalized fat phobia that I only realized in the past few years, I think. Why was I judging so many other people's bodies so much if I'm trying to accept mine? And then I realized that is where it came from. So that's part of where this is too, is kind of that reflection of yourself and other people, how you look at other people based on how you look at yourself. So it all just keeps going around. This one is like, it swirls. You bounce from the words, you bounce from the swirls. And it's that, it's interesting. It's so old because the body itself is so tiny. It's like that big. And then look what we ended up with. It's like takes up the whole entire thing. Um, but again, I've struggled with body issues my whole life, so that this was definitely part of it. But I wanted to bring those questions out as well. And then there's these connections with the circles that has to do with how all these questions are connected, how we're connected to each other, and even more importantly to me, how every part of us is connected to, mind, body, soul, what we think, how what we do affects what we think, how what we think affects what we do, how what we say to ourselves, our inside voices, what we say to ourselves affects how we think and feel. It's all this big cycle. And so that's kind of this, it's a good one to end on, because that's the summation of all of it. There's a question: are the squiggles at the top of the self-portrait? This one or the other one? I'm not sure.
I think
The
this one. It was for
oh
this one.
oh, not intentionally, but that doesn't mean no.
Probably
Um,
self-consciously.
yeah, absolutely. Totally could be. Let me see Eliza's question. Can you speak more about the lettering and when you decide to paint or spray the letters or symbols like the heart directly on the Oh, that's good too. Oh, I love these questions. They're all making me think. Good, and it's my age to keep thinking. Um, yeah, a lot of times I just have the words in my head when I'm starting, and I'm not sure exactly where they're going to go. Sometimes I have in my sketchbook, I have an area of the words written in a lot of different ways. And I could post more pictures of my sketchbook too, that show where I was working out the words. Um, I like using the stencils because I personally feel more comfortable using a little structure when I do my lettering. Now, Lisa, who's here, has the most beautiful lettering I've ever seen in my life, and don't let her say anything about it. It's just the way it is. And I've always been more of a designer than an illustrator, I felt. So my personal letters are not exactly what I want. And I like using the structure of the stencil, but I'll use it as a foundation. So in the later ones you see, I went over those. I painted over those. But this one I wasn't ready yet, and I had one kind of stencil, and that's what I was using, and that's all I was going to use. Um, so yeah, so that one has many layers on it. That was a different kind of stencil. That one I wrote right over the stencil, the real in the Real Women Have Power. There's the stencil, and then I just wrote right over it. So I don't even know if I'm answering the question anymore. Um, wait. Oh, thank you. Yeah. So yeah, that graphic element is
Yeah.
definitely always going to be a part of me. But oh yeah, so like the word powerful probably has 4 or 5 layers of both painted stencil, drawn stencil, spray painted again, and then I just wrote over it. So it's really how it evolves until it becomes what I need it to be. And I don't always know what that's going to be until I'm there.
Great answers. Awesome. I am going to go ahead and stop sharing and open it up to other questions. And any other questions, comments, please feel free to unmute. Yeah, we'd love to hear from you.
Speak up. Everyone's asleep. No, I'm just kidding.
I really want to thank you because I am working on a piece called Heart of the Anunnaki, and there's a pair of Anunnaki wings at the top of the painting. And it's been sitting out on my patio for about 2-3 years because I can't figure out what to do with the wings. But now you're telling me, it's like, yeah, paint over them. It's like, oh yeah, I can paint them in and then paint them out. Thank you.
There you go.
What am I going to do with these wings? Because that part of the canvas is still blank.
Yeah, just paint them, work over them, bring them back, put them out. Never
I
done till
love
you said
artist
that.
talks. They always inspire me in ways that I have no idea.
Yeah, I
Are there
love
other,
using.
yeah, other questions or comments? Oh, Deborah.
Yes. I know you personally for a long time.
Yes, you do.
And what I'm curious, many of your pieces about you and not your family, which I know you love and with all your heart. So I'm
That
just curious, are those in other pieces?
Oh, I'm happy to speak to that. I do have a few pieces, they're very early pieces that I've done about my kids. But I try to do it from a mom's point of view. Like they have their own story to tell, and I want to tell mine, and I don't want to tell their story. I am currently working on a book that's about being the mom of kids with certain needs. But again, I'm working very hard to keep that from my perspective and not tell their story because their story is their story to tell. And so I'm feeling like with my art, a lot of it is this is my story to tell. And so that's where this comes out. Good
One
question.
other question. It's kind of related.
Okay.
You're also very Jewish. And some of the pieces, I don't see the Jewishness. Is that in other pieces?
I do have other pieces that show the Judaism in it more, yes. These I tend to go mostly the spirituality aspect of it. There is so much to my identity that I would have to make something the size of Guernica to show you everything that it made up about me, which is why I'm not planning to stop anytime soon. So it will, it does show up. I do have a body of work that is about Jewish art and the Holocaust, actually. And
What?
every year I have I speak in my friend's class who teaches at Cal State Northridge about the effect of multi-generational Holocaust trauma on an artist's point of view and their art. So I will let you know when that's coming up. That'll be on Zoom as well.
Yay. I also love the CSUN connection with like Karen's here and me, and I think there's a couple of other people. So
Lisa, my friend Lisa.
yay, go CSUN.
Present.
Adiola, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll just say thank you for sharing insight into your work. Beautiful, body of work in the exhibitions that, truly enjoy seeing it in person. Now hearing about your process and the layerings and what goes into it, it's just awesome. So thank you. You did a wonderful job tonight.
Oh, Adiola, thank you so much. I'm so glad you were here.
Anything else? Oh, Lisa.
I just want to say, Yasher Koach, you're awesome, and you are so much more evolved than I will ever be. And I am inspired by you and your art and how far you've come. So I just want to send you love. And now we have to go eat our dinner.
Okay.
Which is why I haven't shown my face, because I've been cooking. So,
Of course you are. Bye, Lisa. Bye, Kayla. Yeah,
Well, thank you.
she was my art buddy when I was in school.
Yay. That's awesome.
Have a great trip. Beautiful, beautiful work.
Thank you.
Love
Thank you
it.
very much, girl. I always appreciate your support.
I know.
And thank you so much, everybody, for being here. And thank you, Monica. It's now 10 o'clock in Florida. She like flew today, so she's
I'm
like,
not jet lagged yet. I mean, or I am jet lagged. It
oh,
doesn't
okay.
feel like Florida time, so I'm good.
Exactly. Well, your show's done now. Enjoy your little vacation. Enjoy with your friends. Your talk's
Yeah.
done. And yeah, thank you, everybody, for being here and for your support.
Thank you, everyone. And thank you, Kristine, always.
You're welcome. You're welcome. It's a pleasure.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.